Well, here's the new narrative. This is what we get. We got this from The Guardian. U.S. could be under right-wing dictator by 2030. Canadian professor warns. Canadian political scientist warns an op-ed of Trumpist threat to American democracy and possible effect on northern neighbor. I love how they're like, right-wing dictatorship is coming, and they show a picture of Trump. I got to be honest, and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not entirely convinced Donald Trump will even be alive in 2030.
Who knows?
8 years from now, he'll be in his late 80s, mid to late 80s. Okay. I mean, that's well above average life expectancy for the average American adult male. But maybe, I got to be honest, Trump is pretty spry. So he could be, but under a right-wing dictator. See, I'll tell you what they're doing. They're just trying to generate fear, to scare the left, to get them to rally around something. But I tell you, a mannequin will not be Trump. Donald Trump is that big imposing figure the left cowered and feared. And now they're like, but look at this invisible specter of right-wing Trumpism. And it's like, yo, I don't know what that is. I don't see anything there. It's hollow. Your argument is trash.
I mean, they'll have to portray whoever comes next as worse than Trump, right? Because it's like you have a television series and they're like, oh, the next season's nowhere near as exciting. You know, it's going to be boring actually. Like no one's going to watch it, right? They're using the same principles as entertainment or infotainment, which, you know, I think it's not even a choice between whether they really believe this or they don't. I think a really good propagandist believes what they're saying, right? Like I think a lot of people on the left have convinced themselves that democracy is 5 seconds away from, disappearing. That allows them to project that same image to the rest of the planet, I think.
Okay, you're correct. They're going to have to say that whoever comes next is worse than Trump. The problem is, take a look at this article from The Independent. Trump's denial of climate change represents worse threat to humanity than Hitler, says activist Noam Chomsky. Look at this dude, man.
Whoa.
Yikes. Bro. Noam Chomsky has that famous video where it's in the 70s and he's defending free speech, even for those you disagree with. Now he's become this disheveled old crackpot.
Communist.
But here's my main point. If they're now saying in more ways than one that Trump is worse than Hitler, here's an article from Newsweek. A woman tweeted Hitler was better than Trump and Twitter won't say whether she broke its rules. If they actually believe that, then what do they say about the next guy? He's the Antichrist or something?
Yeah. Did you guys watch this Netflix movie, Don't Look Up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I liked it.
Well, okay, yeah, I thought it was a fun movie in terms of it being watchable, and actually, someone I had worked with in the past, David Sirota, helped co-write it. So I'm not trying to be mean about it, but one of the things the movie really gets wrong is that so the plot of the movie, for those who haven't seen it, is that a comet is heading towards the Earth. It's going to be there in 6 months, and the news media and politicians.
Spoiler alerts. Just in case. Oh yeah, okay. It's still a new movie.
All right, I'll do mild spoilers. I won't give anything too much away. But basically, the arc of the plot is that the media and the politicians don't take it seriously. They don't really care that a comet's going to head towards the Earth and destroy everybody. And I watched that and I just thought to myself, it doesn't have any bearing on reality because if there was a comet heading towards the Earth, I think CNN would have a comet hologram. I think they would have 25
Comet Watch.
They would have 25 intersectional takes on the comet every day, what the comet is going to do to women and minorities. The media in this country is driven by fear. It's not always fear of stuff you really should be all that scared of, I would say, but they understand that fear sells, that fear gets clicks, and there's absolutely no way that they will pass up the challenge of an actual world-ending disaster.
Right.
Which, by the way, climate change is bad in many ways, but it's not actually a world-ending disaster. The planet will still exist, the ecosystem will still exist, humans will still exist. It'll change. A comet would end life on Earth.
That's a really good point. I can imagine Don Lemon doing, Comet Watch. And they have they have the sidebar and it's miles, time till hits the Earth and miles traveled. Mm-hmm. And then there will be a special presentation where they look at the sky and they have a reporter on the ground. We're here in New York at the top of the Empire State Building. You can look up, you can start to see it forming. They would never stop. They'd have panels discussing
No, they would have reenactments. They would have animated reenactments of people dying and getting obliterated. They would have a death counter, how many people are going to die, how many people are going to suffer.
Every segment would be yelling at the president, Mr. President, how dare you not blow up that comet? You have to do this immediately. It would be 5 alarm car fire. We know that because that's what happened with COVID-19, right? Which was far less severe than a comet striking the Earth. So I just, it's a fun movie. I think it was an enjoyable watch, but I do think that the writers kind of just missed it. Like that's not the way the media operates.
There's a meme I saw where it's the Wojak face all happy, and it's got the full political compass over the face, looking at the movie saying, wow, it's proving me right and making fun of my political rivals. Like, the movie made fun of literally everyone. That's why I thought it was all right. But it was obvious what the narrative was. The message was that climate change is serious. The scientists are warning us, and no one takes it seriously. But I think you're right. I think the fear is too juicy for them to give up.
But there's also a lot of people desensitized. As you were just talking about a few moments ago, people are angry, people are fed up. I absolutely believe that's the case, especially with COVID, especially with just how horribly the government messed up and how you would argue that every step of the way they made the situation that much worse. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that, but at a certain point, I think enough people say, hey, I'm just sick of this. This is not going to affect me. There's only so many times you could lunge out and scream boo at somebody before they're like, okay, this doesn't really work at all. And I think this is why there's a victory that we're having here that we need to note, and that is that corporate news media viewership, by and large, has been going down by the years, and it has continued to go down. And I think that's a huge victory. And I think people are just getting so desensitized, so out of touch with it, or they're just going on Zoloft and other SSRIs. But there's also a small section of that. But the majority of people are saying, this is not scary anymore. It's like a Halloween ride that just, loses its factor after going on it so many times.
It's called, it's a form of bias that like probably all the news has, which is called negativity bias, right? Like they're always trying to tell you how the world's like going to hell in a handbasket, right? And at a certain point, why does someone want to sit there and watch that every single day, even in the most trivial circumstances? Finding a woman in Central Park who's rude to somebody or something and putting the video on national news. Like, right. At a certain point, someone's going to be like, "Why am I watching this over and over? Like, why am I getting this distorted view of the world? Why are they trying to make me miserable?"
I don't think that's it, because I think you can levy some of that criticism towards us as well. We see things in the news and we highlight like, wow, we think this is pretty bad and something that needs to be addressed. To be fair, though, if you even look at some of the stories we did over, like, to the start of the show, like Joe Rogan leading the charge to go against censorship is fairly neutral. Censorship is bad, but people fighting back is good. So we try not to be always very negative, but I think we're very negative. However, I think cable TV is driven specifically by editorial demand for negativity, which is, it's different from here. Like, we have actual, we're people with opinions. Before we start the show, we sit down. I say like, hey, Luke, what have you seen in the news? What do you think's important? And Luke's got a bunch of stories like riots are happening here or this happens. And then we'll try and figure out what we think is like the most important thing that we should talk about. What matters most to people in terms of what's happening. For me, I thought the Joe Rogan thing was big because he's such a big celebrity to push back against censorship. And I don't see that as a negative for the most part. It kind of just is. But CNN, we learned this thanks to real journalists like Project Veritas. When you get that CNN producer saying that COVID deaths were gangbusters for ratings, they put that big old thing, death counter, on the TV. Think about how despicable that is. Man,
and celebrating and being happy about it, that they were able to get ratings because of that fear. That's another layer of it that really needs to be understood by people who consume media. Yeah. They should understand what they're getting and who they're getting it from. And when they're getting the news from CNN, you don't want to know who you're getting it from. When you find out, holy cow.
I think news media always has to address problems. Like, I made a couple of documentaries with Fox over the past year in different locations. But I think in terms of addressing the problems, you should also be addressing solutions. Like, you should also be constructive. You should be trying to figure out, like, how do we solve this? Like, what are people doing about it? And I think the difference between people sitting around talking about problems like we are and what CNN does is, like, CNN doesn't care if there ever is a solution to the problem. CNN is just there to tell you that everything's horrible and you need to be addicted to us to keep telling you how horrible
they're
things are.
They're incentivized to make it more horrible because when they do, they get more viewership because of that. So, and I think this is in response to a lot of their coverage, which is, in my opinion, leading to some real life harm.
I gotta tell you, man, you constantly just watching what's going on. People have asked me like, man, it must get to you sometimes. And I'm like, it's not the news. It's more like the personal aspect. When I'm reading stories about news, policy, worldly affairs, that's not a big deal. But when I read about incessant behaviors, that's really it's blackpilling. When you see like, hey, we're experiencing the same problem again because people just do the same thing over and over again, it kind of feels like a human macro level problem that's intrinsic to humans. Like, why do people in New York keep voting for Ocasio-Cortez? Well, they don't read the news. They don't watch the news. They get their information from word of mouth. They don't pay attention. So they're trapped in this cycle. And I don't see that as ever changing. I really don't. Until maybe the pot boils over and it knocks off the stove or something. For the time being, AOC can say like, oh, we got to have mask mandates. Texas is killing people. And then go party in Miami because she knows her constituents won't read the news. And she gets away with it. So that's the kind of thing where I'm just like, man, all of this could stop. And we could make a Minecraft channel and just talk about, I don't even know anything about Minecraft. Creepers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the creepers. Oh, they're getting to us. It's but instead it's just like the same thing every day. We've been talking about censorship for a decade.
Ugh.
And it's been getting worse. We've been talking about, many of these cultural issues, the banning of comedy for 5, 6, 7 years, and it just keeps getting worse. And at a certain point, it's like, are people going to keep behaving the exact same way? Is anything going to change? Or are we stuck in a loop? But maybe it's not a loop. Maybe it's a downward spiral that eventually just reaches the point where we're spinning so fast. Just
I still think the fact that we're still here is a victory. The fact that against all odds, the algorithm changes, the tweaks, the demonetizations, the just deliberate efforts to stop any kind of independent speech. The fact that there's still some resilient people out there building infrastructure, building their own bases is a victory in itself. And we're very blessed to still be here and still be able to still keep up the fight in some kind of way. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, I was just saying that, let's remember also, we're talking about this COVID emergency state. The world came together, governments came together, business came together, pharmaceuticals came together. We all, dramatically altered our lifestyles in ways that we've never done before. People were, doing these masks, people were social distancing, there was lockdowns, all this happened. And like you said, we're still here, right? They developed vaccines. Most people have gotten through this. Thankfully, this disease is actually not very harmful for children at all. People are slowly waking up to that. We survived this much better than we have past pandemics, right? It's nothing like Spanish flu, so on and so forth. And I think that that's a positive thing, right? We can't get too down on ourselves and say that, oh, America reacted to this so poorly, we're so stupid, take the don't look up view of the United States. We can also look at the fact that the average American did tons of stuff in response to this that we'd never done before. A lot of us did kind of rise to some kind of calling, even if some of these policies were misguided. And we're all still here. We survived this, and we're going to survive this.
I'm actually fairly optimistic on where we're going in the future. I just feel like after 7 or 8 years of the same things happening over and over again, what I mean to say is the thing that's annoying and frustrating doing this job is that you hear the same stories on repeat. Sometimes they're slightly different. Sometimes they're just regurgitated, and you just kind of wish people would learn and change their behaviors. But I think the issue is that humans are. Human civilization is emergent. It's constantly in flux with younger people aging and dying and then younger people coming in taking over. So you end up with people like Vosh, for instance, who comes on this show and said he didn't know anything about the Obama administration because he was just a teenager. But now he's a major force in political commentary on the internet. Not the biggest channel in the world, but he's fairly large. He gets a lot of views. And he's having a conversation about politics when he wasn't around for what Obama had done, and Biden as well. So he's lacking that experience. Mm-hmm. That makes it impossible for humanity to effectively learn, in a sense. And not completely, just in some areas. However, I do think that people are going to get to a point where they just slam the table and say, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. And that's why I think Democrats are resigning and retiring or planning to retire in huge numbers. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.